It's really great to be here, and you know, honestly, this has been a long time in coming. I've been working for and with Life Changing Services for almost 5 years now, and really immersing myself into all the principles and all the programs that we do here, and I'm constantly amazed at the spirit of the people here and their desire and how they're motivated. And it's been a journey for myself. I've really can't even begin to tell you how much I've changed over the last 5 years. So let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm the parent specialist. What I do here is I do write manuals. I have written the Family Manual, the Eternal Warriors Manual, and all the journals. And so I work with people like Kim and Tina, and I've been working with Mindy right now. We're working on the Daughters of Light Manual, and I've worked with Maurice. But I also am a life coach for the parents who are struggling figuring out how to communicate with their children. And I do teach the Family Manual. I'm a local mentor here. I've taught several families in the principles. My specialty, though, is to sit down one-on-one with parents and help them navigate through some of their roadblocks with their communication with their children and their fears and their emotional blocks about how to move forward in good relationships with their children. With that said, I want you to know that the reason why I feel like I can do this is because I've had my own struggles and found a few answers for myself. And I've done a lot of study on how to do relationships and communication, and I actually wrote a thesis on empathetic communication. So today I want to talk to you about shame. And I want to tell you a story about one of my clients. So this woman came to me and she said, my son is 11 years old, and I found he was viewing pornography on the computer. And she says, I'm so angry, I just want to just throw all the computers out the window, and I want to spank him really hard, and I want to, you know, I'm just so mad. He's been taught not to do this. Why is he making this choice? And I said, hold on, wait, back up. Let's talk about this for a second. And I said, what do you know about him, and what do you know about the situation? And we kind of went through it and calmed her down a little bit. And I explained to her exactly what Kim talked to you about, what exposure does for children, and how their brains actually don't know how to register it. And it's created a synapse in the brain that goes there. And so once a synapse is created, and once it, a trauma actually creates a really strong synapse. So as Kim said, our choice is diminished. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. But what I want to talk about is this mother's response and reaction. She asked me, she said, so where is choice? When do they have choice? And I said, okay, what we want to be able to do is help him make healthier choices. I'm going to go into that in a little bit. And so I'm going to give you a 3-step process. And the first step is I want you to figure out a way that you can energetically release some of that trauma in his system. And in the book Irresistible, it's about internet addictions. It talks about a couple of really good resources that you can use for energetic release of those types of traumas. One, they say, is a very effective way is EMDR, which you could go to any qualified therapist to get. A couple of other, Mindy does trauma conversion therapy here. There are several things that are coming up energetically that you can use to release that trauma. For children, trauma is actually released pretty easily. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. But as the synapses grow and myelinate together, the trauma is much more difficult to deal with. So get it taken care of early. And when they become about 12 or 13 years old, that's when the brain begins to prune itself. And as the brain is pruning all of the synapses that it's not using, it begins to myelinate things together and create super pathways. That's when trauma gets really tricky. So what I want to tell you about trauma is that when someone's experienced a trauma, they tend to go back to the behavior because they're trying to make sense of it. And they're trying to figure out, what is it? Why does it make me feel this way? What does this mean to me? And they can't figure out what's happening to them emotionally in their bodies or chemically in their bodies. And what we find a lot of times is children who are abused become very sexually abused when they're young, become very sexually promiscuous when they're older, because they're going back to the trauma to find out, to make sense of it, and then it becomes myelinated together, which becomes this big, huge problem. So we can actually help a child by finding out early and not overreacting, but using the tools in front of us, or we can hinder it and make it worse. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, is how we make it worse. The way we make it worse is we make it a matter of shame. So I've asked people, I kind of did this little survey and asked people, what is shame? And the response I've gotten a lot from people is, well, it's when you are afraid, or when you want to hide in a hole and you don't want anyone to know what you've been doing, you know. And they have a really hard time kind of pinning down what is shame. So I want to tell you two things. Shame is an emotion, and it's a state of being. And the emotion you feel of shame, actually, you can actually chemically feel it. Sometimes I'll say to people, I want you to imagine that you are driving down a road and you see in your rearview mirror the
police officer.
Police officer and his lights, right? And the first thing that happens is you have a chemical response, right? Well, you think it's fear, but I'm going to tell you typically what you're feeling is shame, because you think, oh my gosh, I just got caught, right? And you can chemically tell what your feelings are. Can anyone in this room tell me what it feels like to feel that in your body? What does it feel like? Where do you feel it?
In your gut.
In your gut. You feel it in your gut. Some people say they feel tingling in their armpits. In your chest.
You just can't breathe.
And you can't breathe, right? That's your chemical response. That's the feeling of shame. Okay? So what is the state of shame? Does anyone know that? It's a really important question. I'm going to give you the definition of shame. Shame is a painful, emotional, social emotion that can be seen as resulting from comparison of the self's action with the self's standard or ideal social standard. So they're comparing themselves to the standard they think is right, okay? Or the standard that is a social standard. We, in our church, very religious people, it's super unavoidable. We tend to create cultures of shame because we use a lot of words of we should act like this, we should make choices like this. And when you use the word should, it's a very shaming word. Why did you do that? You shouldn't have done that. We call it shoulding on ourselves. We should ourselves all the time, right? When I'm driving down the road and the policeman comes and his lights are on, I'm thinking to myself, I shouldn't have sped. You know, I shouldn't have been speeding. I shouldn't have gotten caught, right? So it's not something that we can necessarily control because it's cultural. But what we can do is teach our children how to deal with it. So what is the message of shame? The message of shame is you're bad.
Hide.
Right? Hide. You're bad. It's not you did something bad. It's you're bad. Hide, run away. You're bad. You were speeding down the road and you were bad to do that. Instead of, oh, I made a bad choice. Darn it. What am I going to do? Right? And a lot of times, I'm going to talk about that state of shame again. What happens is when we start feeling I'm bad, we start living in the space of I'm bad. And that's when, when we're called upon to do things that are our very best gifts, we're afraid to do them because we're bad. And we get this message going on inside of our head. Of course, Satan loves that message, and he says, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad. So the question I want to have is there any use for shame? Is there any use for it? Is it useful in any way for us to experience shame?
We want to feel godly sorrow, not
Okay.
shame.
So is godly sorrow shame? No.
It's different.
It's different, okay. So is there any use for shame? So shame is completely evil. There is use for guilt. Some people don't like feeling guilt because they begin to translate that into shame. But guilt is I did something bad, shame is I am bad. There is no use for shame because we are, as Kim said, our daughters and sons of our Heavenly Father. We are not bad. So those who study emotions, they theorize that emotions have a vibration. And I want to share something with you that was very, very interesting. One of the clinicians here did an experiment. She steamed rice, and she put this rice into 3 different containers. And I'm going to show you these containers up close in just a second. So this is the plain steamed rice. She didn't put any words on the outside of it. But this steamed rice, she put in this jar and she put words on the outside of it. She put words like, you are beautiful, you are magnificent, you are loyal, amazing, you're worth it, people care a lot more than you think. And if you compare the 2 jars, the one that had all the really awesome words on it and the just plain steamed rice, this has been sitting out for probably 2 months now. So it's a little stinky, not too bad. This one has just a little piece of mold in it. And this one actually got really yellowish looking. And this one has stayed white. Okay, I want to show you this jar. This jar, she wrote on it, you are too broken to be loved, you're horrible, you are stupid, you're worthless, you're ugly. Okay, I want you to see, this is the shame one, which is you're worthless. I want you to see that. These are all sitting out at the exact same length. That is you're worthless. Right there, right under that word.
That's what's so interesting is that under the words, the color and the decay is so different. It's
Yeah.
really interesting to me.
Yeah,
You'd think the whole bottle would just be black.
it's because words communicate emotion, emotion have vibration. Our words has a vibration. This vibration is very destructive. Even written on the bottle. And I just think it's amazing that we can actually do experiments like this and really prove how harmful it can be to be in a state of shame. So there's a story once that I watched many years ago. It was produced by the church. It was called Cypher in the Snow. I don't know if any of you remember that. But it's a story of a young man who lived out in the country, who didn't have parents who really supported him. He got a lot of abuse. He had no friends in school, and he had to walk back and forth in the snow to and from school. And eventually, one day, they found him dead in the snow. That young man was living in a state of shame. Shame pulls life out of us. So what is the cure? How do we stop shaming? How do we change the shame culture? I'm going to give you some answers for this. First is we want to actually increase the ability to choose. So we want to do what we call increasing the gap between stimulus and response. So in other words, we're changing the synapses in the brain. Stephen R. Covey says where we have choice is when we have a stimulus and then we have this gap where we get to make a choice and then we choose the response, right? If we have a superhighway in the brain, that's a synaptic connection that is myelinated together, our gap between stimulus and response is about that small. It's so small that we don't hardly even recognize we have a choice. Now, I hang out with a lot of different people who have addictions, and because they have addiction, they have these myelinated synapses together, and their gap is so small, what they have to do is have healing. And that's why we always say, you need the Savior, because He needs to heal their brain. And they also need to be able to have that inner drive, that inner connection of, I need to change my life. And we need to take both of those things and put them together, and that's what creates a bigger gap between stimulus and response. With our children, we need to be able to, when they make a bad choice, we need to say things like, oh, that was a bad choice. What kind of choice would be a different, better choice for you? And when you're doing that exercise with them, you're actually increasing the gap. Oh, I had a different choice? Yes, and then you're cognitively working it through with them and you're changing their brain so that you're increasing that gap. All right, the other thing that we want to do is we want to teach them about shame. So ask them, where do you feel it? Where is the shame? Oh, I feel it in my stomach, oh, I feel it in my chest, or I feel it in my armpits, or I feel it behind my knees, or I feel it in my head, it itches when I feel it in my throat. That's a really common one. And that's the feeling, remember, but also the state of shame we have to teach them about. When we're in a state of shame, sometimes we're hiding. That's a state of shame. So then we tell them, in Daughters of Light, we teach what we call the shame meter. And we say, okay, 0 is I don't feel any shame at all, and 10 is I am so shameful, I'm just going to stay in my bedroom and no one's going to ever see me ever again, and I might die in there, okay? So we say, where on the shame meter are you? And sometimes I find myself at a 4. Oh my gosh, I'm at a 4. I'm at a 4 on the shame meter. Why am I? And I have to go back. Oh, this happened, and then I got this interpretation. I was in this spin. And a lot of times the spin will, that flash and that spin will send me right into that state of shame. And then you have to start saying, okay, wait, no, I'm powerful. I'm a daughter of God. I don't need to be in the state of shame. Okay, so I felt the shame, but I don't need to stay there. And you can recognize that you feel it because it's painful. And then you can make a choice to get out of it. So the other thing is separating their choices from who they are. Kim kind of talked about this. We are not our choices. I know it's a big, huge revelation. People think, you make a choice and it defines who you are. No, it actually doesn't define who I am, because I have atonement, because I'm a daughter of God. I have a really good friend who's been an alcoholic his entire life, and he's really been struggling his whole life. And in the last year, he started to attend church, and he got out of jail and started to kind of come towards God, and he keeps telling me, I can't believe life can be this good. Yeah, because you are not your choices. God is right there ready to bless you, and you are His son. So we need to separate them. We are not our choices. Okay, and then something that's really, really important, and we've gone over this a lot today, is that we need to help them understand the source of temptation. Because if they understand the source of temptation, they are not their target anymore. So what Satan wants them to do is he wants them to say, you're the problem. You need to beat yourself up. You need to kill yourself. You need to hate yourself. But when we turn their eyes around and say, wait, no, the source of temptation, the source of hate, the source of envy, the source of all of that is Satan. He is the one who is wanting you to buy into the lie. So when we teach them that, what happens is all of a sudden they have an enemy to fight, and it's not themselves. Oh, there's an enemy out there and I can fight him. And I can put my energy into him. Sometimes I ask the question, what is the gift of enmity and why do we have it? I think we were given that gift of enmity to fight Satan. Let's use it. And let's not use it against each other or ourselves. And going back to the story of Adam and Eve that Kim brought up. So if you look at the story, you can see exactly what Satan does. He tempts Eve, tells her to partake of the fruit. You know, we can interpret that in any other way that we feel like we need to. But she falls into the temptation. She does it. And the first thing he wants to say to her is, run, hide, state of shame. Okay? Which is exactly what's going to happen to our children. You've made a choice that's bad. Now you're bad. Run, hide. And we want to be able to get them out of that hiding or that fear that they need to hide. So I think what happened with Eve was she kind of had this transformation with the Spirit. When God said, you know what? It was a choice. You made it. Let's move forward. Let's see what we can do to make it better. Let's see how we can make this choice good for us. What can we learn from the choice? Right? I want to go back to this fear culture that we have a little bit in our church. So our young men especially are really highly exposed to the fear culture because remember we said shame is a social condition. It's a comparison. And, you know, if they have been viewing pornography or if they've been involved with things that they shouldn't be, first thing that goes is they can't partake of the sacrament, which is a social thing. And they can't participate in their priesthood duties, which is another social thing, right? So it compounds the shame for them. We need to get out of pain. That's our human condition. And if this shame is being compounded, I'm not telling you how to manage that or what, you know, I'm not giving any guidance on that. That's absolutely something that bishops and parents have to deal with in their own way. But what I am saying is that if we compound the shame, what's going to happen to our youth is they have to get out of pain. So what they're going to do is either rebel, either submit and heal, or they're going to reject the gospel completely. So when we have really great kids who get it about what they've been doing and they really are willing to work through that and they have really supportive parents and they can diminish the shame and, you know, get lower on that shame meter, they're able to heal, they're able to come to Christ, they're able to understand that they're not too bad, right? And that Christ can heal. For those who can't, they leave the church. Or they become super rebellious and really start delving into all the really hurtful and harmful behaviors. So the last thing I want to leave you with is I like to separate, instead of saying good choices and bad choices, which I think there are, and I think we should use the words good and bad, but I like to say healthy choices and harmful choices. Because when we say healthy choices, we can say, is that something that's going to be healthy for me and my healing and what I need for my life? Okay, so I'm going to give you an idea of why, right? So I have some children who can watch TV, right? I have some children who can occasionally play video games. Is that a bad choice? Well, for that child, it may not be a bad choice, but for another child, is it going to be a harmful choice? That's why I like to separate it between healthy and harmful. So we can individualize our choices for our children. So that's my presentation for today. I hope it's been helpful for you. I want you to know that I feel passionate about this, and if you have parents who are struggling or who need support or help, please contact us and send them my way. I will do what I can to help them communicate better with their children. And Tina, I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to you, and you can field questions.
Question was, is saying you're better than this shaming?
Yes.
And so what I said was best to focus on
Yes, we're
who
gonna
they
shame them
are
for
as a
asking
child of God, and they're powerful versus comparison. As long as they are clear, the choice doesn't define them. Using the phrase better than this may leave them unclear. Who they are versus the choice, very important to help them decipher. Anything you want to add to that, Anurli?
So you're better than this, actually, what Tina says is a comparison of what you should be. It's a shoulding statement. So when you're saying stuff like that, you want to make sure that you ask yourself, am I shoulding on my child when I'm saying this?
Thank you.
If I could make a comment,
Sure.
as an audience member, I'm just thinking it would be much better to just say something like, you are so awesome. Even in the midst of a mistake, you are so awesome, and that mistake right there shows how awesome you are. You're choosing things. That's maybe not the best choice because you are so awesome, so let's talk about that. That might be a better way to handle that.
Great, thank you, Karen, for sharing that.
Tina,
Okay, yes.
can I just go ahead and, I just unmuted myself.
Sure, great, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, I am wondering something. My husband
Sure.
has struggled with pornography all of his life, it seems like, probably since 9 or whatever.
Yeah.
95% of the time he's been able to that we've been married, he's been able to partake of the sacrament, use the priesthood, attend the temple, and nothing's changed. We're actually getting ready to separate, and I'm just wondering if maybe taking some of those things away would have put him in pain. I feel like sometimes pain is a catalyst to help us change.
So, Marie is going to have you answer her question.
Well, here's the thing. We're talking about kids, and we don't want to shame them. But you know what? Sooner or later, that goes back to my original question. I mean, sooner or later, because I have a son that's also addicted, and I have done nothing but have compassion, and I'm just wondering, am I going wrong? Because I'm not seeing any changes. At what point do you start saying, okay, maybe you better not have temple recommend, maybe you better not have the sacrament, or how about maybe you're in temple for once?
Right. Well, Maurice, I think, would be the best person equipped to answer that question, since he is a therapist that deals with these issues most often.
So much of this has to do with the tone of it. The pain element that God provides in the educational experience is similar to the way gravity works, okay? Gravity is one of the most amazing educators, and it never says a word. Everyone kind of gets the point of the message, and pain is included in it. But there's not any emotion behind it. If you step off a 3-story building and you smash your face on the pavement, there isn't any discussion about how bad you should feel because you are feeling pain. You're in pain, okay? And so a discussion about if you do this, then you could lose your phone. It's just if you step off of it, my brothers and I, we have all brothers, we would constantly be jumping our bicycles over this, that, or the other. And my mother would come out and says, you do know that if you miss the jump, you will hit the pavement and will bleed. And we're all, not a problem, we got this, okay? And she would just say, you do know if you do that. My mom is a kitchen mom. If you open the oven and stick your face over it, as it opens, you will get a flash of hot air in your face and it will be painful. Okay, Mom, not a problem. I still remember the first time I did it anyway. Whoa, that is painful, okay? So mothers, there's no problem with having even artificial pain scenarios where if you don't clean your room, you won't get to have cookies. Okay, that's a pain scenario. But you just use the cause and effect pain experience to do the education. You don't add negative emotion to it. Negative emotion is when you're starting to try to influence someone's emotional capacity directly, and it's a really sophisticated process inside the brain to do that. You don't get someone to feel something. Don't try to get someone to feel something. Just create cause and effect scenarios. If it's true, you talk to the bishop says, if you cross these lines, you will not have a temple recommend, and you will not be able to do baptisms for the dead. There it is. If you do this, this will be the consequence, and this will be the pain associated with it. Do not try to emotionalize the pain of it. Okay? This is what happens. If you have a scenario where a father or an uncle or a cousin or somebody has made decisions that have led them to pain, yes, tell that story. We do this in history books all the time. When the Germans did this, and then they did this, it led to this. When the Americans did this, it led to this, and which led to this. Here's a happy ending, here's a not so happy ending. Okay? I have no problem with telling stories about when a man that I know did this, it caused this to happen, and it led to this kind of pain. Let the story and the natural gravity be what causes the pain. Shaming is when you try to use emotion to create pain in somebody and thus get them to choose better. Let cause and effect. And sadly, it can take longer. Just like my mother watching us jump our bicycles over each other and crash and know that she told us that 8 times and we're bleeding, and she's all, yes, you are bleeding. That is correct. You are bleeding all over the place. Okay, these types of behaviors can cause bleeding also, and yes, it's going to hurt when you make choices that cause you to hurt. Be very careful. Watch out for any parenting question that starts out with, how do I make sure? Don't ever try to create a plan that makes sure of any outcome. That is against the plan of God. He did not create a plan that made sure we all experienced salvation. Okay, we get to watch people crash and burn. Yay. Okay? Alrighty, Tina, anything else you want to cover before we wrap up?
Great, thank you. Yeah, I have just a couple things I just want to clarify. When Anelli was teaching about the sacrament and those things, those are necessary parts of the process. We just have to help our youth manage the shame part of it that will naturally come. I think what Anelli was talking about is having those things taken away when it's socially seen, that shame can sneak in right behind a consequence and create shame on that child or youth. And so we have to help manage that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Good. Good.
Correct.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
yeah.
I just want to make sure I clarified that. Okay. And so we have some awesome resources. We don't have a lot of time left, but I'm going to just highlight a couple. And then each of you will get the email with a several page document that includes some tracking charts for you to use with families. And then we have resources listed that are websites, books, articles, videos, and audios. So we have a lot of resources for you to tap into. So I just want to share, this is really good book that I just want to, since we're talking about youth, Kristen Jensen, her website is on the resource page, so you don't need to write this down, but she's the author of Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. And so if you have young people that you want to have this conversation with about, to protect them against pornography and to help them understand the importance of it, she has this one as well as Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior for very small children that just starts the conversation. So if you are a parent or a bishop, it's really important that you have this as a resource because she really helps give you the words and the phrases that are really helpful to use if you're uncomfortable having a conversation. And so I think that's one of the most powerful things about her book. So there's a couple of other resources. Obviously, I'm the director of Big Terminal Warriors, and we are the Addiction Prevention and Self-Mastery Program. And so we work with all different kinds of situations, from just families wanting to prevent addiction to maybe they've got a situation in the past and they really want to become stronger and be able to overcome and be more prepared for future experiences. And so that information is on there. There's some blogs, blog posts on lifechangingservices.org that we actually have included that are really helpful. 4 ways to,
The 4 levels of determining whether or not there's an addiction.
that's a really helpful blog for bishops to have. And so that's pretty much it for us. I'm not going to go over any more resources because they are all listed here. We put together this great handout for you.
Thank you, Tina.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Maurice.
Okay, so I hope that those of you who have attended or those who are watching this recording can see how much work and effort has been put into this. We are striving so hard to serve families, and we're always willing to branch out and research more things and try out more things. Thank you so much to Kim, Anelity, Tina, anyone else who presented and took their time this morning. Not just their time this morning, there's so much work that they put in the background. Now, to make sure everyone's clear, so there's different levels of intervention that we have available to you. First, if you're a very proactive person who learns quickly and can get stuff, one of those power mom type of people that just is present all the time, because you don't have 3 million distractions, etc., you can just get the book. There's the electronic version where you just download it and print it, or you can get the actual book itself and order it through our office. Both of them are available at the store. If you would like a little more training on it, Tina and her team have created the family training so that as a mom or a dad, you can take a class that will teach you how to use this. They will teach you how to be basically a mentor to your own family. The most in-depth training that you get is to actually have Kim or one of her sidekicks actually enter your home and actually use the manual with your family. It is the most intrusive, involved, and most expensive.
And fun.
And fun. Okay, it's really cool, and maybe you want to start with that because it's really amazing to watch people who've really studied the material and know the ins and outs and can go beyond just the what's in there, but it can engage your people and to watch for the micro elements that they can just dive into and surface. It's amazing what they can do. So please consider all the 3 options: self-study, the training class, or to actually have someone come into your home with this phenomenal tool. Now, again, I keep referring to this story because it's really important to me. About 2 or 3 years ago, we were invited by an oncologist, state president, a cancer doctor, to go out to the East Coast and to train his stake. And he, in tears, told me, he says, one of my most frustrating things as a professional is when families fear there might be a problem, a possibility of cancer, so I might have cancer. Let's wait and see if it gets worse. Okay? I might have cancer. Let's wait and see if it gets worse and try a few simple home remedies. Okay? And then I get them in my office as a cancer doctor and I can't do anything. All I can do is give them a little bit of this, a little bit of that, some massively intrusive, expensive interventions that have a less than 50% chance of working. Okay? The same is true if you have any reason to believe that a member of your family, no matter how young they are, has had some exposure to something that can be addictive. Please do not do the traditional thing of waiting to see if it's going to get worse. We have the resources now where if you want to start with one of our top professionals to do a screening, we can diagnose addictive level brain functioning in less than an hour. Okay? And if there's a scare, we're going to do the same thing that a medical doctor does and says, that was scary, I don't see anything like devastating right now, but let's do a checkup in 4 months, or let's do a checkup in 6 months. Let's just keep our eye on it. If we're talking cancer, no one thinks that's weird. No one thinks that's bizarre. If we have a youth that we're working with, or an adult, and let's say they oopsed upon something, let's say it was a little accident, let's say dang it, that was uncomfortable, let's check and see if it was really bad. Let's check and see if it's going to get worse. So I strongly recommend that you do the preventative training, the healthy training that the Family Manual, the Eternal Warriors Manual, has available for you so you can get good, healthy psychology going on in your household. Just like good, healthy eating, good, healthy cautions against cancer in your home. But no matter what you do, just like with cancer, You can do everything right and it can still show up. That doesn't mean you're a bad mom. That doesn't mean you're a bad parent. You can do everything right and it still shows up. Okay? Please, thank you for wanting to be brain surgeons as mothers, but you're not a cancer doctor. Okay? Bishops, you're not a cancer doctor. Okay? Take them to a professional. If you don't love us and you don't trust us completely, find a professional that you trust with addiction diagnostics and get them checked, do a screening, and if they decide it's not that bad, then do another screening and do another screening, and about every 6 months have them checked. Okay? If you want them to get through their adolescence and into adulthood where they win all their battles, because a person with cancer, I'm understanding, can win all their battles too if it's caught early and proper interventions, a person can live for a very long time. Okay? The people who've done the work behind this have worked hard. They've worked hard to be inspired. They've worked hard to be scientifically accurate. You can trust the information that's been here. Please don't wait to see if it gets worse. Get the information you need inside your house, inside your brain, so we can move forward. I hope that you felt inspired by what we have to give you today. We'll see you next time.